a video about some advice, and so basically, with when you're parenting, like there's every kid can only absorb so much information. Like all students, they can only absorb so much information, or your workers in the workforce, they can only absorb so much information before they reach the point of saturation, right? So any extra effort is just wasted energy. So like there's a lot of overbearing parents that they pressure too much. So if you imagine that your kid is a plant, they need to grow, they need sunlight and water to grow, and then they have the soil, right? So basically, so what you do is you kind of, like when they're young, say 2 to 3 years old, you kind of frustrate them to a point where you can almost see them tearing up. And then say when they're about 2, 3 years old, when they could start communicating in sentences to you, then you frustrate them to the point where they're almost going to cry, and then you take your foot off the gas, and then you put on the brakes, and then you try to foster resolve, and you try to make them get determined and be like, okay, well, don't get upset, get determined, get focused, and conquer your challenges, right? You make them a champion, right? Like champions are, some are born naturally, they have the mindset. Like, me, I was lucky, for instance. Like I grew up in the inner city, but my great grandfather had a factory, my dad had servants, and my grandfather had servants. So I had this chip on my shoulder to prove something against the world. And my invisible enemy was poverty. So I had to try to crush poverty. Right. So, I am being restricted by people on the planet, but if not, I did double my money in the stock market in 16 days. And, I got ripped off in innovation. I got ripped off of four 2-bedroom apartments. And I got put a guy in a straight flush in Texas Hold'em poker. So, like, it's just inevitable before I'm rich. So anyways, I have this chip on my shoulder to kind of restore my family's greatness. But most people don't have that, right? So you have to plant these seeds to make your kid a champion, because it's all psychology. Like when I played baseball, like if the ball hit the ground, I envisioned it like there was a grenade that went off and blew up my team. Or in volleyball, it was a grenade that hit the ground, right? So I had to prevent the grenade from going off. So I had to catch it, right, to perform best. Or if I was walking, trying to balance, if I fell, I pretended that I'd fall to my death. So I use psychology to get that maximum potential out of myself. So anyways, back to, so with your kid or with your workers, you pressure them, because you don't want to be the boss that makes your workers walk on eggshells, because if they walk on eggshells, then they're not going to be happy. They're going to be looking for new jobs, and you're going to lose talent. And people they're just going to try just hard enough, right? They're not going to go above and beyond. Whereas if you respect your boss, you're going to try harder, right? And just like if you pressure your kids too much, they end up resenting you. They'll resent you. They secretly hate you, and they become master manipulators and liars, because they lie, because they don't want to be studying like 25 hours a night, right? There's not 25 hours a night, but they don't want to be studying all night, and it doesn't do them any justice to they don't benefit. Like, sure, they might become the valedictorian because of this. So there is they do benefit in a way, but they don't really benefit, because like emotionally, like you lose them, as they're not going to be as close to you. They secretly wish that you die, right? And or they whereas you could make them like, well, so back to the analogy with the plant, but you need water and sunshine, right? So you need love and pressure to make your kids grow. You need love and pressure, support, right? So you make them, okay, you have to study, right? And then you make them study, be like, okay, well, you study for 40 minutes or 45 minutes, and then you could play video games or relax or do what you want for 15 minutes. Then come back, and then you study for 45 minutes, and then you play your video games or do whatever you want for 15 minutes. So this way, they're getting the water, and then they're able to absorb information. And then during the 15 minutes that they're playing video games, or they're doing something else, that like go take the dog for a walk or do dishes or whatever they have to do right around the house, right? Because like when you're a teenager, it should be your house, like it's your team, your family's your team. You got to help out your team win, so your parents have more free time and more energy, so then they could do things with you. They could take you on trips and do things because you're helping out, right? And if you have if you have the ability to get a job and you could help out your family financially, if they don't have money, then so do it, right? Help out your team. Your family's your team, right? So that being said, when you pressure your kids, you want to pressure them, right? Because kids are, they need to be micromanaged, right? To a certain point, right? They need to be micromanaged to be like, okay, you got to do this, and then, but once you so that's the water, right? That's the rain, right? Because you're raining on their parade, right? You're pressuring them, right? But then the plants also grow with sunlight, right? To blossom, right? They grow, and that's the love, right? So it's like, okay, that's when you encourage them, be like, okay, well, don't get frustrated, get determined, right? And and once you complete this task, you finish, say you have 45 questions, you finish the first 25, and then we could go do something. We'll go to the store, or we'll do whatever, right? We'll go have some fun, and then we'll come back, and then you can finish the 25 the remaining 20 questions. Right? You do this, and then you're going to establish a better relationship with them, because and you don't want your kids to lie to you, right? Because in my household, my stepmom was kind of overbearing. She was strict. Like if I was a minute late, I was grounded an hour, and but my dad, if I lied to him, just say I lied to him, I was grounded a month, and I would have to sit on my bed in they call it Indian style. So I had to sit cross-legged on my bed. And there was no cell phones, there was no internet or anything back then, right? So I had to sit on my bed with I couldn't even read a book. I just had to sit there and be like watching paint dry, right? So it was brutal, right? So if I lied to him, I was grounded a month. But if I told him the truth, I might have been grounded a week or two, right? So no matter how hard it was for me to tell the truth, I had to develop that skill to tell my dad the truth. Be out of survival, right? I didn't want to be grounded a month. I only wanted to be grounded as short as possible, right? So I had to tell him the truth, even though it was hard and I didn't want to do it. So it became that I could tell my dad anything. After a while, I could tell him anything and not worry about repercussions. Right? I didn't have to worry about the repercussions because I had an open relationship with him, that I could tell him these really hard things about my life. He died when I was 23. He was murdered secretly, but he was 54 because in the system they murder people at 54 and cause problems for other people at 23. Like Justin Trudeau's brother died at 23, right? So he was secretly murdered. Watch my face look shocked when I tune in Justin Trudeau. Right? So I just tuned Justin in Trudeau into me, right? So that's why my eyes got wrinkled when I said that, right, on film, because he tried connecting cadavers to me. So I'm gonna redirect those back to other people. Wow. Right, so my wrinkles change, but that's chemical electrolysis, right? But they do it. If I were to show you my hands, they have cadavers connected to my hands. So I mentioned this, so you know what they're doing. They're now connecting cadavers just to my fingers. So it's kind of hard to show in this lighting, but I should be able to do it. But I'll show you my hands. My hands are a different color than my forearms. So, see my fingers? My fingers are purple, my hands are tan now, and my forearms are tanned. And now, so my hands are getting red on film, and but they have cadavers connected to my fingers, because there's indicating that I have poor circulation. But I've already formed a video where I show my feet, and my feet have better circulation than my hands. So if I had poor circulation, it would have been indicative. It would have been indicated in my feet. So did they just try to route somebody through me that couldn't say indictive? Well, that's not even how you pronounce it. They're making it so I can't. But did they just route people that can't communicate English very well? My face will drop. Right, so they're trying to make people, but it would be indicating. It would have been indicated in my feet if I had poor circulation. So, anyways, so back to the water analogy. So you want to give them pressure. You want to pressure them to develop determination and resolve, and then you want to be sunlight, and you want to be sunshine and love. Right, so you want to pressure them because as a parent, there's tough love. You got to give your kids tough love, and they respect you more for giving them tough love. Right, and then you get to be sunshine to them, right? Because I had a strict parent. Like my dad was, he was raised in a generation where he didn't hear "I love you" much from his dad, right? That's how it was. Dads didn't say "I love you" to their kids, And then, so my dad, at first, he never said I love you to me or my siblings. But then once his mother died, we realized that life is precious. So then every time after that, we all said, I love you after, well, like every time we left, be like, okay, I love you, because you wanted to make sure in case they died, you said, I love you one last time. Because when somebody dies, like it's after that, it's a one-way conversation usually. It's a one-way conversation. So what you do in that scenario is you write a letter, and then they say burn it, and then you feel better, right? Because you pray. Because like if somebody dies in your family, or a close relationship, and you have unresolved issues, then that kind of eats away at you, right? So then you would write a letter, and then kind of to resolve that, right? You would just express your feelings, and then you just burn the letter, and then you feel better about it, right? But anyway, so then another analogy, like with work, you'd want to do that as well. With work, you'd want to pressure your employees, right? Like, but not like, come on, hurry up, right? Because then they're on eggshells, right? But you want to be like, okay, hey guys, like just say it's you work Monday to Friday. Be like, hey guys, it's Friday. Like if you guys complete the tasks by like 2:00, I'm going to let you go early, or, I have a surprise plan for you. And, and one thing you do with that, as dependent on your workforce, is you have a team building thing, like a team building event outside of work. So you're not thinking about work. Like I had this job in Vancouver, and it was a restoration job, and like this masonry restoration job. And right at the beginning of the contract, it was supposed to be like a year or two contract. They had us go paintballing, like as a team. So it's fantastic. We went out, we went paintballing, and we had a few drinks. We went out and eat. We made a day of it, right? And it was fantastic. So we got a bond as a team, right? So there was a bunch of new workers that were hired, and then there was a bunch of existing workers. So we had a chance for the new workers to become familiar and befriend each other, and then we had a chance for the new workers and the existing workers to befriend each other. So it was a great team building opportunity. And so as an employer in the future, I'd utilize that tactic. And another thing I would do is I would have, depending on the workforce, right? If I had, like, say, 1,000 people, like if I owned a skyscraper, and I had a building with a skyscraper, in the skyscraper, I would have a spa for my employees to be able to utilize before and after work. And then I'd have a comedian every once in a while to lighten the mood, right? Or if I had a mill, like just say I had a mill, and they start work at 7:00. So from like 6 to 7, I'd have a comedian on the airwaves saying, like, just lighten the mood. So when they're in the work, and they're changing, getting ready to put on the work clothes to go to work, they're sitting there laughing in a lighthearted mood, and then so they're relaxed when they get to work. So they're ready to perform, right? You want to make people perform, right? Because most people don't perform under pressure, right? If they do, they would all get the game-winning shots in Game 7 when it comes down to it, right? Most people, they want to pass the puck, or pass the basketball to the guy that they trust to make the game-winning shot. Most people can't perform under pressure; they choke, right? So you got to make a relaxing environment, and then be like a boss that inspires people, not a boss that, like, if you fuck up, I'm gonna fire you, right? Like, there is that consequence that they do make poor decisions. They're going to be terminated after a period of time, but you don't want to come across, like, your demeanor. You don't want to come across that way, like, hey, I got to walk on eggshells, or else I'm not going to be able to pay rent, right? Because that stress, you kill your employees, and then so you have to invest, you have to invest in them to procure a talent in them, like, so that's investment in them, like time. It takes time, and so why would you want to have to do this all the time? And then, like, I don't know about you, but as an employee, if I'm working for a boss that's, like, overbearing, the first thing is, like, okay, because, like, if you get a job, you're just working a job, right? But if you get a career, you're working something that you enjoy, right? You enjoy that career. But if you get a job, you just need a paycheck, right? So if you have an overbearing boss where you just need a paycheck, like, the first thing I did every single time that I had an overbearing boss is when I got off work every morning, I handed out resumes. Right, to find my dream job. And then but also, like, to find a non-overbearing boss, right? But so one ways to do it is like in Canada, like if you work with a bunch of guys, is like a football pool or a sports pool or a lottery pool. Like there's ways to like come across as one of the guys to your employees. So if you come across as one of the guys to your employees, they're going to open up and they're going to want to try hard for you as a boss rather than like, fuck, this guy's a prick. And like where everybody, like, as soon as he's out of the room, everybody's like, oh, he's such a fucking prick. Like there's this one boss, he didn't quite get it, but I had a foreman at a call center. His name was Rick. I'm like, I said to his face, I'm like, you put the P in Rick. So I called him a prick to his face, right? And he didn't get it, but he was a prick, right? So I disliked him, and I couldn't wait till we did switch foremans every once in a while, but I couldn't wait to get a new foreman because he was a prick, right? Like he was just a jerk, right? So did Rick just find out about that right now? Because you can see I got wrinkles right here, right? Did Rick just find out about that? So he wants to get that cadaver diffuser. Right? Like that, right? How's it feeling right in the heart? Get it right in the heart. Get the total residual volume out of those people. Right? So anyways, you don't want to be the prick if your name is Rick, right? You don't want to put the P in Rick, right? Because anyways, that's about it. So you don't want to be overbearing. And so another thing is if you're a boss and you're hiring people, like, and just say you're a career type of job where you're getting university graduates, and so one might be magna cum laude, right? Two might be. You might have two identical people where they had both a 4-point grade point average, right? So the first thing you'd want to do is have a comedian. Like, just say you had several prospects, you'd have a comedian, and then you would get them to tell a joke, and whoever laughs first is the smartest. They're the smartest person. Right, the one, like, any room, right? If you hear a joke, the guy that's laughing last, they're the dim-witted ones. They're the ones that aren't the brightest. They're like, everybody else is done laughing. They're like, right? They're laughing all of a sudden, right? That's why they say ignorance is bliss, right? Because these dim-witted people, they don't get it till the end, right? But so I'd have a comedian and tell them a joke, and then those that laughed the fastest, or I'd ask, well, how much if they had a 4.0 grade point average, I'd be like, well, how many hours a week did you spend studying? Right. So if one of them's like, well, I spent 30 hours a week studying, right? And I'd be like, okay, well, that's good, right? Like that shows that they're determined, which is a good skill. Doesn't mean that they're not useful. But then another one, you might find out they only spent 10 hours a week studying and they still got the 40% or the 4.0 grade point average, right? So they're using, like, it took like a third of the time, right? So that means, as an employer, this employee potentially is going to perform tasks like 33% faster than the other person that took 30 hours a week to study, right? So depending on how much effort they put in, right? So you could have some like skill testing questions to kind of gauge how fast they're able to perform the work task, right? And the people that perform it the fastest, and without being stressed, right? Like, maybe have some stress, because you don't want people to be stressed to kind of perform and like jumping through hoops like they're on fire, right? You don't want that, but you want them to be able to perform like competently. Like I became a financial advisor at one point, and I forget, it had something like a 30 or 40% failure rate, like to do the LLQP test, and the mutual fund test was a little easier, but the LLQP had a 30-40% failure rate. Like when I did it, like an architect failed and a high school teacher failed, and right, like they failed. It's a 4-hour exam, and when I did it in an hour and a half, and they thought I quit. They thought I gave up. And it's like, no, either I know it or I don't know it. Like right. So that being said, if you're doing a test, what you do is answer the questions you know, and then skip the questions you don't know, and then come back to them once you're finished. Because sometimes, like especially multiple choice is like, you don't really want to have multiple choice testing questions too often, because you could figure them out, because usually there's two answers that are very similar. So one of them is the right answer. So you could eliminate the 3 other questions, because you know that it's either an if or an of, right? There might be an if or of difference between the two answers, or one might be more right than the other. So then you know that one of those are the right answers. So you could use deductive logic to figure out the correct answer, even if you didn't know it. But that being said, that doesn't mean that means that they're competent, they're skilled, because in the workforce, right, they don't allow you to when you do an exam, they don't allow you to utilize skills that are tools that you'd have in reality, right? Like if you have a computer job, right, and then now you're doing an exam and you don't get to use a computer, right? That's not really a service to you. It doesn't really show who could perform the best, right? Because whoever's able to gather information off the internet and utilize it the best would be the best person for the job, not people that just were able to retain and memorize information. Because anybody can memorize information, but people that are able to utilize and find those those critical questions. I used to work for several tech support companies. So I did tech support for Dell, Gateway, Windows Vista, Comcast, and AT&T, right? So every one of them, they'd be like, okay, well, you have to ask them this question, that question, this question, this question. You'd have to ask a sequence of questions, right? So after a while, it's like, okay, for me, I'm like, okay, at first I was following protocol, right? But then after a while, I got more experience, more seasoned. I'm like, okay, well, first of all, I just need to determine whether it's hardware or software issue, right? Is it a hardware issue or a software issue? And then go down a different road at that point, right? If it's hardware, then then there's less you could do, right? You might have to physically reseed the hard drive or the RAM or whatever, right? And that was brutal, right? Like there's some people, like imagine there's these old people that can't even open an email, and now you have to be like, okay, well, I need you to unplug your computer and then open up the hard, take off the case and then look for the hard drive. It looks like this. And, this one person, I remember they were paralyzed or whatever. It's brutal. And then this other guy, he wanted to upgrade his computer but the motherboard couldn't be upgraded anymore. It was obsolete basically. So I'm he wanted to buy RAM and he wanted to buy a hard drive and all this stuff. And I told him, I'm like, well, hey, I'm not going to sell you this. I'm not going to sell you this because your computer's going to be obsolete. You're just going to have to buy a brand new computer next year. So he's like, okay, well, whatever, right? And then hung up, right? And he didn't buy anything off me. And it was like a kind of tech support sales job, right? So, but you know what he did do? He ended up calling back. He found out my name because I gave him awesome customer service. And he ended up buying two computers off me, right? Instead of me selling them, so they're selling say $200 for the company, right? I ended up having two computer sales, say over $1,000, right? Because I gave above and beyond customer service, right? I gave them useful advice, right? So you don't want to pillage people, right? I've had other sales jobs where I sold stuff on Facebook Marketplace, and I kind of came out with a new strategy. And I was getting to the point where I was going to buy a Walmart. They have return items from Walmart where you could buy a transport trailer for at the time it was $8,000, and you might get $30,000 to $65,000 worth of merchandise in it. So I was getting to the point where I was almost there. I was almost going to have to get a GST number in Canada. But I was getting to the point where when I'm selling stuff, it's okay, well, I want to sell stuff. I really love selling things to people. So I wanted to sell quality things that people would benefit from. I just didn't want to sell them anything. I wanted to sell them I was starting to sell say blood pressure monitors or ODB2 readers for the car so they could tune up their car and things that were useful to people. Because I want to make money off people, but I want to at least give them something that they're going to benefit from, not something unfortunately people buy a treadmill and most of them, they stop using them, within a month or two, right? They end up stop using them, right? Whereas it is useful to have, right? Don't get me wrong, but a lot of exercise equipment is underutilized because people they had the best plans and best intentions, right? People, I knew people, I lived in the ghetto when I was younger, right? So I didn't know people that were on the wrong side of the law. So these people, when they were in jail, they would be they'd write letters and be oh, I'm going to change my life. I'm going to do this and that and all this stuff. And then as soon as they got out of jail, they totally forgot everything, right? So they were likely to relapse and not rehabilitate themselves because they forgot how much it sucked to be in jail in the first place, right? So you always got to, you always got to learn from other people's mistakes, right? When you're first born, you're every kid, every single human when they're born, their parent has to tell them that something's hot. Nobody knows what hot is, right? Until you burn yourself. right? Then you know what hot is, right? So when you're an adult, you learn how other people burn themselves, and then so you don't do it, right? So you could do that by going to and even if you don't see yourself as an alcoholic, you could go to an AA meeting, and then you can learn how other people's turn their lives into a train wreck, and then so you make it so it doesn't happen to you or your kids. Like my dad brought me to an AA meeting when I was 15. I wasn't even, well, maybe I did kind of experiment with drinking at that point, but I was nowhere near an alcoholic. But I knew at 15 years old not to fuck with alcohol, because I heard people's life their life was so bad, almost like they had open heart surgery, like they had to be resuscitated to be normal again, right? Like if you listen to an alcoholic's life, like it's brutal, right? Like it's a brutal, like what alcohol does to people. You know, I like cannabis, right? There's no weed in on, right? But there's Al-Anon, right? Because alcoholics, they're brutal with their words. They tell you the truth. Usually they tell you the truth. Like usually with alcohol, people do things that they want to do, but that's why they call it liquid courage, right? You know, so they do things that they would do, what they want to do, but they don't have the courage to do it naturally. But once they have alcohol in their system, then they do it. That's what they call it liquid courage, or they're, this one women might not like, but drinking age or drinking time, in Canada ends at 2 a.m, right? But they're like, well, there's a term called beer goggles, right? So at 10, she's a 2, and at 2, she's a 10, right? Meaning at 10 o'clock at PM, you don't have any alcohol in your system. She's a 2 out of a 10, like attractive-wise, right? And then at 2 a.m, she's a 10 out of 10 attractive-wise. It's called beer goggles, right? So at 10, she's a 2, and at 2, she's a 10, right? Beer goggles and liquid courage. Right, and that's why men don't live as long as women, because women don't do as many risky things. But if you were to look on the internet and you want a good laugh, just look for maybe go on YouTube and be like, "Hold my beer" moments, where people are like, "Hold my beer," and while they do these things, and you're gonna see like guys will ride off the roof on a bicycle into a pool or do some of these crazy things because of alcohol, right? It makes you do these things so anyways, with alcohol, because both my parents were alcoholics, so I knew not to mess with alcoholism and with alcohol, right? I'm like, well, I didn't do anything actually. I was like, I avoided all substances. I was the last one out of my friends to try anything, but it was pure pressure eventually that got to me. But when I was 16, in 1 week I had to go to I had 3 exams, and I was supposed to testify at a murder trial, and so I was stressed out. So I started smoking cannabis at that point, and then I liked how it made me feel, so I continued to do it. And so I was really stressed out, and it took me about a year after my friends were doing it because I grew up in poverty, right? So I hung around with the poorer kids, where substance use was more prevalent than if I was to live in the suburbs, but the university drive parents, I used to ask my parents questions, and there's no Google or anything. They would just be like, I don't know, you're too young to find out. It's like, well, if your kid, if it's not sexual, if your kid asks you something sexual, then it's like, maybe, okay, you're too young to find out. But if your kid asks you a question, they're being inquisitive, right? So it's up to you as a parent to answer that question, find out the answer for them as competent as you could. So the best way you would do that is, you can't just go by any information you find on the internet. You'd want to go to a .org website, not a .com website, because a .org is ran by an organization which has more reputable information, or double confirm it by multiple different sources. So if you search it on the search engine, you come up with the results, and then be like, okay, well, I'm going to try it now, say WebMD, or because if you look at if you're like, oh, what's this mark on my face? And then all of a sudden you're going to be like, oh, I got stage 5 fucking cancer, and I got to be rushed to the hospital, and you get hypochondriac and you blow things out of proportion. Whereas if you just go to a reputable website, and then you ask questions, and then always consult in Canada, we have a thing called telehealth, right? But they always tell you to go to the doctors within 72 hours, right? No matter what. But, but you want to try to nip things in the bud. So if you listen to your body's telling you clues, giving you clues about your future that most people don't listen to, right? So like if you're 30 years old or 40 years old and you feel a pain that you've never felt before in your life, be suspicious of that pain. Like right there, like a red flag should go up about like, hey, I've never felt that in my organs before. I'm gonna get checked out. Or like I've never felt that before. I better see a doctor, right? So, because it could be as simple as like just making a lifestyle change that might prolong your life, right? You might live to 80 if you make that lifestyle change, but if you don't do anything, you're gonna die at 60 something, right? So you got to listen to your body. You got to listen to your body's clues and cues because everybody's different, right? So that being said, if you go to a doctor, they're trained in medicine, right? But they're not an expert in your body. So remember that they're not an expert with your body. You are. You live in your body. You know you should know your body better. Like if you're seemingly competent, right? If you're competent enough, right? You should know your body better than any doctor because you live in your body. You know, it's like, okay, well, I've never had that pain, or I have this pain all the time. I don't need to worry about it. I just, have a little bit of Tylenol. Right? Like I could tell, like, I don't get sick now because I realized I have evolution. But when I did, like before I realized I had evolution, I got sick like everybody else did because now I know I have evolution. So every cell in my body is aware of it. So I get mind over matter. And so I'm able to attack. Like if I feel a pain, I just attack the pain with my mind and then I'm able to make it go away. So anyways, if I had felt like phlegm in my throat, I knew I was going to get a cold the next day. So if I were to take it, say, like a cough syrup or something like that the night before, then I can prevent being sick, right? So if you listen, or if you're depressed, like because before they can make me depressed in the past. So when you're depressed, you stop doing things that you like to do, right? So to get out of depression, you have to do those things that you like doing, but you just don't have the energy or you think you don't want to do it, right? So you got to force yourself to do it. It's like if you're like you're hungry but you don't really want to eat, you got to kind of force yourself to eat, right? You got to get press forward and get through it, right? Like if you have the flu, like a fever, like and you're puking, right? You can't keep anything in your stomach, right? So you got to stay hydrated. So what I used to do is I'd put like say a little bit of fluid, like say a soup broth would be good because you can't eat anything. Like so maybe a soup broth with some crackers, like something light for your stomach. So you're at least getting something in your stomach. But I'd just put water in my mouth and then I'd swallow it slowly. I would just let it sit there until the water would turn warm in my mouth because I had a fever, and then I'd just swallow it slowly. So I wasn't making my stomach get full of fluid fast where I'd want to regurgitate it, right? Or like puke it out basically. And I'd have a cool cloth on my forehead, and then I just put it on my skin and just kind of wipe down my skin. And then as soon as it got hot, based on my body heat, then I just pour more cold water. And then so like in my life, I've probably taken pain reliever. I've probably taken maybe 20 pills in my life as an adult, anyways. I don't know how many times they gave me as a kid, but I've probably taken pain reliever like maybe 20 times in my life. I just kind of deal with it, right? And like the system, they did give me a headache every day for a year, right? So I get it reciprocated one day, motherfuckers. But anyways, so I just deal with it. Like I don't take Tylenol. So when I did take it, it was like it reacted fast to my body because it was like, so if you use something too much, you develop a tolerance or an immunity for it. So it's not as reacting or not as, it's not going to perform as well as it would if you do it. But then again, I smoke cannabis, right? So like cannabis is a natural pain reliever. Like it activates the same part of the brain as pain suppression. So like it stimulates that. So I could have been alleviating a lot of pain just by smoking cannabis, right? And there's this guy, like because currently I'm at the mental health ward and I get to sue the Canadian government. Like they're fucking idiots. Like today, a lawyer asked me if they were going to represent me, and I'm like, no, I'm going to represent myself because I'm thinking you guys don't ask the questions I'd ask because like I was hospitalized May 5th, but the letter was dated May 9th. So how's that possible? Like if somebody thought they were enough that they wanted to form me, because in Canada anybody could say like, hey, this person's a threat to me, and then they call the hospital, like the police, then they bring you up to the hospital, then you're there for 72 hours, like you're held prisoner, right, without any proof, like no, like hearsay, basically hearsay, like it's inadmissible in court. It's like, hey, I heard this guy sold drugs. Like you can't do that. Like it's like a witch hunt, like the Spanish Inquisition, like this, like the Canadian mental health system. So I'm gonna embarrass Canada once once I'm out of here because I'm gonna sue them once I'm out of here. All I do is keep evidence and document online, and so I document like today, like what, like Justin Trudeau, did you kill your brother? Right? And so I'm gonna try to get my eyes to get those wrinkles again. So like disconnecting people, getting the total residual volume out of them, and getting the cadavers connected to me and any of my human violators. But they didn't like that. So did you see how my eyes got wrinkled? Is because I just connected cadavers to my body through chemical electrolysis. Now everybody that has the most to lose are gonna take a hit off this and get the cadavers. So they're not feeling too well. Those people, they're not doing too well because I'm biologically immortal. So that means I could withstand having cadavers connected to me, but cadavers connected to other people, it kills them really fast. But they're human rapists. They're pedophiles that rape people. So anyways, well, that's I guess about it for this video. So I kind of detracted, but the long and short of it is, if you want to maximize potential out of your kids, once again, they're like a plant, and you need to pressure them, which would be the rain, because you rain on their parade, right? Because if not, like if you ask your 5-year-old, what you want for supper? Candy. I want candy, right? Because like to a 5-year-old, that's all that matters to the world. To them is candy. They just want candy. Like, and like I remember like this. Why I'm not going to pose this for kids, but when I brought my daughter to the store, like when she was a kid, her superpower was screaming. It was like, she'd be like, I want this. I'm like, no, you can't have that. I'm like, okay, shut up. I'm going to buy you this, right? So that was her superpower, almost, right? Was screaming, right? But then these women, these young girls, they become women, and then they're able to use their vagina as a superpower over their husbands in the future, right? That's the superpower. The real superpower is vagina for a straight man. But anyways, because women control who they have sex with, but men control who they marry. Remember that, guys.